Is art a good investment? This is Blackbird Rook, writing about contemporary art and the culture around it. People ask this all the time. Is art a good investment? And the honest answer is, sometimes. But it's the wrong first question. A few years ago, especially during COVID, there was a wave of companies offering fractional ownership in major artworks. You could buy a sliver of Warhol, as if art had finally been turned into a kind of stylish fintech product. It was always sold as accessibility and democratization, a way for ordinary people to buy into the art market. But the whole thing seemed absurd to me. What exactly are you buying? 1/1000th of a soup can? Art is not a stock. It is not just a figure on a screen. It is a thing you live with, look at, think about, remember. The moment it becomes only a financial instrument, something important has been stripped away. Now, that does not mean art cannot make money. Of course it can. Some prints and editions by major names have done very well. There are artists with deep secondary markets, regular auction turnover and long-term demand. In those cases, yes, art can hold value and sometimes increase steadily. But the idea of art as an easy, passive investment is a fantasy, because the art market does not move in a straight line. Prices shift, but so does taste. Institutions change direction, critics lose interest, collectors move on. An artist who looked unstoppable 5 years ago may suddenly feel overcooked. Another who was ignored for years can be rediscovered and rise sharply. There is no neat formula to it. And one of the biggest differences between art and more conventional investments is that you cannot necessarily sell when you want to. You may own something valuable, but if the timing is wrong, the market is soft, or too many comparable works appear at once, that value becomes much harder to realize. The market does not care that you wanted liquidity in March. That is why art funds have always looked suspect to me. They tend to rely on the fantasy that you can engineer an exit on schedule, but the market has no obligation to cooperate. If the work needs another 3 years, or if demand has cooled, or if the category has gone flat, then the fund structure starts to look like a bad fit for investment. So if you are serious about buying art with one eye on value, I think the healthier way to think about it is not as an art fund, but as an art fund of one: your collection, your judgment, your time horizon, your appetite for risk. And once you think like that, it gets clearer. At the lower risk end, you have established names with real market history. Good Hockney prints, strong Warhol editions, things with a visible and active secondary market. That does not make them foolproof, and it certainly does not mean every example is worth buying, but at least there is data. There is precedent. There is a market you can actually see. Then there is the middle ground, mid-career artists with serious momentum. Perhaps museum shows, strong gallery support, growing auction visibility. This is often where buyers feel most confident, but it can be one of the trickiest areas. The prices are already high, but the reputations are still forming. You are paying quite a lot while still taking a real gamble. Then at the speculative end you have emerging artists. This is where people dream of finding the next big thing. Sometimes they do, but it is also where a lot of buying is driven by noise, fashion, and herd mentality. Some artists will rise. Some will plateau. Some will disappear almost completely from the market. That is the reality. So no one honest would talk about this as though it were easy. What matters here is not just money, but judgment. Can you tell the difference between substance and hype, between an artist building something real and one being pushed too fast? Between a market that is genuinely forming and one that is just loud for 6 months? That is part of the value of good advice. Not certainty, not guarantees, just better filtering, better timing, and fewer expensive mistakes. But even then, art does not behave like shares. It behaves more like culture, unstable, emotional, shaped by belief, taste, reputation, and timing. Financial value tends to follow conviction, not lead it. First, people believe in the work. Then the wider market catches up, if it catches up at all. That is why the best collectors are rarely the ones asking only what will go up. They are asking what they are really looking at, whether the work has force, whether the artist has staying power, whether this is something they will still want to live with if the market does absolutely nothing for 10 years. And I think that is the real question, because if you buy art only for return, you are often left with something inert in your house, something you bought from anxiety or greed or a desire not to miss out. Whereas if you buy something with intelligence, discipline, and real response, then at least the thing has a chance of rewarding you on more than one level. So is art a good investment? Sometimes yes, but it is illiquid, unpredictable, and full of traps for the inexperienced. It is not passive. It is not simple. And it absolutely should not be your first question. When considering buying something, a better first question is it any good? Then, why do I want it? Then, what are the actual conditions around it? Price, scarcity, support, market history, timing. And finally, if it never makes me any money at all, would I still be glad I bought it? If the answer to that last one is yes, you are probably starting in the right place. Thank you for watching. If you are interested in starting or expanding a collection, you can get in touch at blackbirdrook.com. And if you want more essays like this one, you can find the newsletter at Blackbird Rook on Substack and follow along on Instagram at Blackbird Rook.